From the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Talking Catholic. I'm Jen Morrow, and with me today, though I can't see him, is Mike Walsh. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Jen. I really do need to talk to the IT department about my Wi-Fi connectivity for these Zoom calls.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. We're having this podcast today. Last week's podcast was at 9 a.m. and I was definitely a little punchy for that one. This one, I have no idea what the energy level is going to be because we just had our Thanksgiving Day lunch with all of our colleagues in the pastoral center, not to be confused with the pastoral department. The pastoral center here where we work, and I will tell you, I have eaten everything that people have brought in.
You did a very good job of the sampler platter. I saw, you had like a little bit of everything, and I could see that you were trying to eat something that everybody had brought. It was very in the spirit of Thanksgiving of you.
Yes, I'm very egalitarian when it comes to people's home cooking. I want to try a little bit of everything. I brought in 3 dishes myself. I brought in cornbread. I brought in focaccia, and I brought in the infamous urban legend Neiman Marcus cookies. And I wanted to make sure everybody was going to be loaded up on carbs, but they really did. It was great, and there's a number of folks from the Latino community that work in our building, and I just love that because they bring in some of the best foods, including I still don't entirely know what's in it. But somebody brought in something that's called funeral sandwiches, and it was from Evelyn from the Tribunal. And now she crossed out funeral and then wrote novena underneath of it. So I don't know which is true, but I got to tell you, they're like little finger sandwiches. So I may have had 17 of them, but they were really good.
You know what's in them? Did you hear her say what's in them? Do you want to know?
She did tell me, and I've forgotten.
Okay, I'm telling the readers. So first, the readers, see, Catholic Star, the listeners. So they were like these little sandwiches cut into little triangles with no crusts on them. And inside was this, it sounds like a crazy thing, but it was so good. She said like a canned ham. So I'm going to go with like a deviled ham thing. Cheese whiz, pimento cheese, and milk. Now that you know what's in it, you're not sure you want to eat it anymore, are you?
I'm not saying the ingredient listing was appetizing, but the final effect was outstanding.
It's so good. And the fact that they were called funeral sandwiches actually is kind of what piqued my interest. I was like, I'm going to try these because I don't know what's going on here. But it was delicious. Everything was very good. And like Mike said, now we are on a podcast with some good friends of ours, and it's a Zoom, and Mike has turned his camera off. So that's why I said it was good to be with Mike, but not see him, because I'm not going to be able to take verbal cues from you because I'm just seeing a big Diocese of Camden seal. So
that's all right. It's better looking at my face anyway.
I will channel my inner Mike Walsh to see what he might be thinking at this time.
Oh, that's a frightening concept.
It's very frightening.
It'll probably be insulting. You know what? This is first of all, this is going to be coming out like 3 days before Thanksgiving, and I just want everyone to know this is the beginning of my favorite time of year. I love that Thanksgiving to Christmas a run, actually all the way to the Epiphany for that matter. It's a lot of joy, but I like the fact that this time period often starts with Thanksgiving, sort of the precursor to Advent, and it's a nice opportunity to kind of give thanks. Something that I can't say is always at the top of my list as an overworked professional. Sometimes I forget to be thankful to things, but I got to say that we have been very blessed this year with a lot of good fortune here in the diocese, both the diocese at large and the diocese offices particularly. And it's been 2025 has been altogether a very good year, or 2024 rather, has been a very good year, one that I've been happy to be a part of. And there's certainly been some trials along the way and some difficulties and unresolved issues, but ultimately it's been, I think, a very good year. And I hope people will remember that as we enter these couple of days before Thanksgiving, and then enter into that very holy time period of Advent and the Christmas season. So anyway, I just hope everyone has an opportunity to be thankful over this next week and then joyous, and or think about their faith over the Advent season, then be joyous around the Christmas season. So just a little message to our listeners. So and to at least one of our listeners who took me seriously when I said, go ahead and join my Instagram page. It did happen. Somebody actually did. So Colleen, thank you very much for following me on Instagram now. That's very sweet. I hope you're going to enjoy all of the food photos that you're going to see soon. That was
Wait,
nice.
did we tell the listeners that Colleen was taking us with her around the globe? Did we say that?
We made mention of that
Okay.
that she was in contact with you, but yeah, she was the one that followed me on Instagram, and that was a treat.
Yeah,
So
it was
thank
good.
you for that, Colleen. That was actually a lot of fun. And enjoy the rest of your travels, Colleen. I
Yes.
enjoy following you now. So
New friends.
exactly. So this episode specifically is about an order, a grouping of people that I did not know existed before I came to work for the diocese. And if you've watched any of our live streams or you've been present for any of our particularly more notable diocesan events, say an ordination, the Chrism Mass, you'll often see the Knights of Columbus, but there'll be another body of lay people, you assume are lay people probably walking in. Or occasionally at a diocesan event, you might see priests that are not wearing the traditional diocesan vestments or wearing something else, and you'll see like a very unique cross on the items that they're wearing, or a neck, or a something that's hanging around their neck. And I get asked all the time, who are these people? And I have a flippant answer that I'm not going to say out loud because I get yelled at every time I say it out loud. But we've never actually had anyone on this group to come on. So we've decided to have a heavy hitters from around the diocese who are members of this particular order. It's a Vatican order. It's the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem. And with us today, and I'm gonna go around and invite people to talk individually, but I wanted to have the local leader in our diocese, Monsignor Louis Marucci, sort of give us an idea of what this order is and what they do.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you. I want to apologize in advance. I'm getting over that upper respiratory infection, so I don't have much of a voice, but I'll try to struggle my way through this. When Bishop Sullivan first came to the diocese, one of the things that was something that was important to him was we had an established order of chapter of the Knights and Dames of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem, but they were few in numbers and they were quite inactive. And he really believed so much in the mission of this order that he wanted to give great visibility to it, and he really wanted to support the Christians in the Holy Land. And so he had asked me at that time if I would serve as the liaison to the Knights and Dames of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem. And he's done a great job in building and promoting this order in our diocese. When he first came, there were about 8 members of the order. Currently in the Diocese of Camden, there are 96 members of the order that are comprised of both laity, clergy, priests, and deacons. The order actually is one of the oldest chivalric orders that exists in the church still today, and it can date its origins back to the time of the First Crusades, when the knights were commissioned or invested to defend the holy shrines of the Holy Land. If those knights that may be listening to this may see a particular value in what I'm going to share with you, but a knight would always spend, before they went out into battle, a vigil night in prayer, an evening, the entire night in prayer, praying to do the will of God. And the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre were specifically chosen to defend the Holy Sepulchre. That is the place that entombed our Lord, and the place of his burial, and other holy places in that arena. The ideals of a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre back in the time of the Crusades were to propagate the faith, to defend the weak, and to ensure charity towards other human beings. And so that was a significant charism of what it meant to be a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre. And now, throughout the course of history, like through the 14th to 18th century, the history of what happens in what is known as the Latin Patriarchate, which consists of Israel, Palestine, Jordan, and other surrounding areas, sort of went under control of a variety of different realms of authority. And the order died off for a number of centuries, but it was in the back in the 1800s that Pope Pius IX, I believe it was Pius IX, wanted to reestablish the charisms of that order. And like I said, the charisms of that order is to propagate the faith, to defend the weak, and to show charity to those who are extraordinarily less fortunate. And so they sort of changed the mission of the order from military protection to a spiritual charism to defend the Christian movement in the Holy Land and to promote the Christian movement in the Holy Land. And the order took on a kind of a more modernized approach of its members, and the members dedicate themselves to the care of the people in the Holy Land. Today in the Holy Land, only 1.9% of the total population are Christians.
Mm.
And if people do not step forward to try to help and to protect the Christian movement, it will be extinct in the next 15 years. So the knights and dames today make a lifelong commitment to serve in this role. They dedicate themselves to the care and the support of the people in the Holy Land. And the people in the Holy Land are enduring intense suffering. I mean, and I use that word very specifically. They are truly a suffering people. They endure an intense high cost of living and lack of employment. They pay extraordinarily high taxes. They're often the victims of eviction and border blockages. They're often suffer from a lack of basic human rights. And so if you have all of that oppression, then upon you in your daily living, they're fleeing left and right in order to find a better place to live. And if you're a Christian, could there be a better place to live than literally in the land of the Lord, the land where our Lord walked, where he preached, where he taught, where our Blessed Mother sets an example of discipleship. And so today, the order consists of doing a few things. One, praying specifically for the Christian people in the Holy Land, to pray for their safety, for their well-being, and for a sense of peace in the Holy Land. They make a commitment to support the charitable works of what is known as the Latin Patriarchate. That's the Latin Patriarch who oversees the Christian movements in Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Cyprus, Syria, and Egypt. And they support a number of Christian projects and initiatives with a financial commitment. So it's a commitment, a lifelong commitment of prayer and a lifelong commitment of financial support. And ideally, every knight or dame of the Holy Sepulchre is asked to make a pilgrimage to the Holy Land so they can experience firsthand the plight of the Christians. So today, our ministries and projects include promoting some Catholic schools, supporting some orphanages, centers for people with disabilities, support for families that are in need of healthcare and employment, and reaching the Christians throughout the Latin Patriarchate. So the individuals say yes to God's will. And even when they're invested, if you look at what happens in the investiture ceremony, when someone is being invested, one of the first things that they do is they have a vigil service. That vigil service sort of imitates the night of prayer that the knights took before they would go out and battle in crusade. And they make a commitment to do God's will and to live a charism of a holy life that is specifically dedicated to support the Christian movement and the Latin Patriarchate. That's what the order is today, and I have to give significant accolades to Bishop Sullivan for being such an advocate for the support of the Christian people in the Holy Land.
Monsignor Marucci, thank you very much. That was an outstanding explanation of the order and its history and what it's there for today. And to further, make your point, as a lot of the podcast listeners know, I took a pilgrimage with Bishop Sullivan to the Holy Land last year, 2 years ago, in between COVID and then the Gaza troubles. I got the opportunity to go to the Holy Land, and meeting particularly the Arabic Christians in the West Bank it completely changed my viewpoint on the Holy Land and what life is like there. So I could not agree with you more. I'd also like to bring in some of our colleagues and friends of the podcast who haven't had a chance to talk yet. I'm gonna start with my beloved frenemy, Donna Ottaviano-Britt, a semi-recent dame of the order. Donna, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you? Frenemy.
Good, thank you. Frenemy.
Yes.
Your mom
you and your husband are both are a knight and dame of the order, and you joined what, 2-3 years ago?
I think 3 years ago. Yeah, we've been part of the order now for 3 years.
Okay. I'm going to finish the introductions first. Father Allain Caparas, the pastor of Mary of Mother Mercy Parish in my hometown of Glassboro. You're joining us. Good to see you. How long have you been a member of the order?
Hi, Mike. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me into the podcast. I actually became a member, or was invested as a member of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre in October of 2022. I think that was the same year. Donna, I think.
Yes.
I think
yes, we were quite a big contingent that year.
Yes, we were invested together. So I am also a recent invested knight. So it's been really a wonderful, journey so far.
And our last guest, and not my frenemy, but one of my favorite people in the diocese, Meryl Cerana. How are you?
I'm just fine.
You're also from Mary. Mary Mother Mercy Parish
Mary
in
Mother of
Glassboro.
Mercy Parish, yes.
One of these days, I'm going to get it right. I promise.
I'm the pastoral associate for parish administration here at the parish. So
Thank you,
Father
Meryl.
Caparas and I work together.
And how long have you been a member of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre?
So I've been, so I guess it was a year in October because it was
Okay.
23 when I was invested.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
yes.
So my question to the three of you in particular, and I think Father Caparas, I'm going to start with you, is what was what sort of like made you gravitate to, this entity?
Well, Mike, the first time that I really came across the order was when I was an associate at St. Peter's Parish in Merchantville, and Father Anthony Manapala was my pastor, and I saw some of the clothing, which I know you said you were going to talk about, and I started asking questions about the work of the order, and so that was like my soft introduction into the order. And as Msgr Marucci mentioned, the order has really become more visible in the diocese, and you would see these folks, these, especially the laity, in these robes and mantilla and caps, and I said, oh yeah, I'm familiar. I've heard about them, and my pastor, Monsignor Father Manapella, had mentioned it to me, but I really didn't give it too much of a thought until I received a letter of invitation from Bishop Sullivan in the summer of 2022, asking me to pray and to consider becoming a member of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. And so I began to read more about it, and I felt that I was really called to be part of the order, namely, as Monsignor Marucci beautifully articulated, to pray and to support the work of the Latin Patriarch and in the Holy Land. And I'm going to go on a full disclosure here. I have never been to the Holy Land. And I've always had the desire to go to the Holy Land, but I never been there before until I became a knight of the Holy Sepulchre, and I said, I feel that the Lord is calling me to go there to see firsthand the experience of the Christians in the Holy Land, and unfortunately, because of all the different conflicts going on, I have not had the chance to go. I actually had to postpone my trip to the Holy Land twice since I became a knight of the Holy Sepulchre. Twice, yeah. I'm hoping and I'm praying that we will be able to go next year. Although it's still looking a bit grim, but I still have every intention to go. And ever since I've been a member, Mike, I can truly say I've become more sensitive to the suffering of the Christians and the people in the Holy Land. And I think it's such a gift, to be honest with you, because we can be so insular sometimes in our world and everything that's going on in our country and other parts of the world, that when I read about, or when I am exposed to the sufferings of the Christians in the Holy Land, it becomes more personal. It's not just, oh yeah, those poor people in faraway land who are suffering. It's more personal to me because I am now part of their order. I am now part of in supporting them and praying for them each and every day.
Father,
thank you, Father.
do you think that you said that you had a call already to the Holy Land? Do you think that's one of the reasons that when you got the call from Bishop to consider being a knight, that you jumped on that experience? Like, it's kind of not a coincidence that you already had a passion for that.
Yeah, it was. I don't think it was a coincidence. I think that desire or that calling was already planted in me for many years, and it was Bishop Sullivan and his invitation that really kind of encourage me to go to the next level. And now I find myself, considering other people now that I think who would become good members of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. We need allies. We need people to continue this wonderful work. And I'm constantly on the lookout, in my own parish and my own community. But not only that, I remember very vividly when I last Palm Sunday, when I was and Good Friday, when during the Holy Week, when we were collecting money to support the Holy Land, especially in the Good Friday collection. I really felt so passionate. Meryl, I don't know if you remember that. I really felt that really called to invite the people to give of themselves, to give out of their generosity, to support the Christians and in the Holy Land and the work of the Latin Patriarch. I have never felt that before as a priest. I felt so passionate about asking people and no shame in asking people, give generously. And I don't know, Meryl, you may not remember, but I thought we had a pretty big collection that we were able to send to for the work of the Holy Land and for the order.
Right. It actually was. And since I've become a member of the order, we've been able to be part of the processions and celebrations that we've had at the parish. And so that visibility of us in our regalia really does help people to understand. And so we were there on Good Friday, and we were there right in the front, praying the prayers that we all pray on Good Friday. And so when Father made reference to that, it was tangible for them. And it did make a huge difference in how much, it's always been a pretty good collection, but it was significantly more this time and more personal.
Meryl,
Donna-
how was it that you got involved? Sorry, Mike, I want to hear how Meryl got involved. Were you also invited or was you called to?
So I was invited by Father Caparas. So he was in and he says, "Oh, I can invite people in." And so of course he shows up at my door and says, "I'd like to invite you." And I said, "Ha, sure, that's fine. You just want to suck me in." But then I prayerfully considered it and I really thought about it. And the charisms that Monsignor Marucci talked about are really very natural to me. That's part of my life charisms, part of my personality, part of who I am. I'm someone who's going to pray for you and support you financially as much as I can and be there to advocate for people in need. That's who I am. So it was, well, after I thought about it, I was humbled, but I also was excited about that because that's, it's a recognition, but also a role that you take on for a lifetime. And, I always said that the only commitment I was going to make for a lifetime was my marriage. But then I have this one too.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
So Donna, you and I, the reason I like to lovingly refer to us as frenemies is because we are in many ways very like-minded. And when I found out that you were going to become a Dame of the Holy Sepulchre, I will admit that I was a little somewhat surprised because it didn't seem to fit your personality. So I'm curious, this is our other lay Dame on here. What kind of interested you in becoming a member of the order?
So I think how I would answer that, and my mom will love when she listens to this, Mike, that you've referred to me as that frenemy one more time.
Twice.
Just saying.
Maybe 3 times.
Because she does listen to the podcast. But I think, so I went also on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and Bishop was on that, and it was in 20, right in front of COVID. Actually, I thought I was just going to thoroughly enjoy going to the Holy Land for the first time in my life. My husband, Joe, was coming to, Father Hughes was on it. And then Mike told me before I left, I had to bring like equipment because I have to do interviews. I have to interview Bishop and I have to interview the pilgrims. I'm like, wait, aren't I just going on a pilgrimage? Now I'm doing like live reporting, from the Holy Land. But first I will tell you that it was remarkable to be in the place of Jesus and Mary and the apostles. I was deeply moved by the pilgrimage itself. and of the plight of the people that live there, and of all the ordained and religious that serve there, and of all of those churches, and the, as Monsignor Marucci said, less than 2% of the population there now are Christians. And so it was a life-changing experience to go to the Holy Land. And then within probably less than 6 months of returning home, having received a letter of invitation to become part of the order. And I really think in the way that, because I had a chance to interview Bishop and Father Hughes and all of the, many of the pilgrims that were on the trip, and to listen to their stories of why this trip was so important to them. And so invited to participate in the mission of the Holy Land as part of this order. I think if I hadn't been to the Holy Land and was invited to be part of it before my experience, I may have really had to think about it and pray about it. But it just seemed like a natural affinity for me is to join the order and invite my husband, because he was invited too.
Yeah, that also surprised me, because I know your husband well, one of my favorite people in the world, someone I do not refer to as a friend of me. He's a good guy.
He'll be glad to know.
But I do. So this has been mentioned a couple of times, and now that we've sort of gotten your sort of journeys to the order in line, I want to talk to people a little bit about the attire. So the attire is hard to miss. As a matter of fact, when we have photographers for the Catholic Star Herald come along, I say, hey, listen, I need you to take pictures of all these people who are walking in. And they're like, well, what are they going to look like? And I'm like, well, you're going to know it when you see it. In the old days, in the previous iteration of the Knights of Columbus, there was a lot of, they were very festooned with a lot of plumage and, bold colors. And at that time, I thought that was sort of the high watermark of order attire. And then I came across the Knights and Dames of the Holy Sepulchre, and I was put to shame, because that is some serious amount of clothing you all are wearing. So, Donna, could you describe for the dames what it is that you wear?
Yes. So we wear black capes. And sewn into the front left side of the cape is the cross of Jerusalem, and it is red, and it is by no means small. It's a very large cross of Jerusalem that resides on the left side of the cape. We also, in procession, we will wear white gloves, and we will wear a black mantilla veil, and we also have a medal that is the cross of Jerusalem that we wear at our neck. And so that's what the women wear. I'm a little holy envy of what the lay men get to wear as knights. They're much brighter. They get to wear white capes. And so that's what Joe wears, right? Joe wears the white cape, again, with the cross of Jerusalem in red on the left side of the cape. They also wear white gloves, black tie in processions. And they also they wear the medal at their necks. And they also get to wear a black velvet cap. I want to call it's almost like a beret, because it comes
similar to a beret,
with the emblem of the order on the cap. The men just have a chance to look a little brighter because they're wearing the white cape. The girls, the ladies, it's all black.
The thing is, though, as amazing as that is, it's actually the priests. They get to roll in with the best of the finery. Father Caparas, could you describe what it is that the priests get to wear?
Yes. So similar to the male members, or the knights, we do get a white, a mozzetta, all right, and it's basically a shoulder cape, if you may, that we put on over our surplice, or our a cassock and surplice, or there's another one that escaping my mind, but anyway, you put it over your cassock and surplice, and it also has that distinct cross of Jerusalem on the shoulder, and so we wear that along with depending on the occasion, and Donna and Meryl also would wear them. We would also wear the necklace, or the chain of our of our rank or office. So I think Monsignor Marucci, you're a higher rank than I am, so you have a bigger cross that you wear.
That's actually, I was actually going to ask Monsignor Marucci about that, because that's another unique element to the order, is that there are ranks within it. And I know that there's I don't know if she's still an active member or not, but there was maybe a knight commander, a dame commander that wore this very bold gold chain. Can you talk to us a little bit about the ranks within the order, Monsignor?
Yes, before we talk about the ranks, can I just talk about the insignia for a second?
Yes, of course.
Because the value of the insignia is to give witness. And what we're giving witness to is the power of the cross. And that's why that cross is so dominant. That's why it is such a significant symbol of the order. The Jerusalem cross was the symbol of it was emboldened on the flag for the knights during the Crusades. The symbolism of the Jerusalem cross is very important for people to understand. And so the Jerusalem cross is a red large cross with 4 smaller crosses in each corner. And that symbolizes the 5 wounds of Christ. The 4 corner crosses represent the wounds in his hands and in his feet, and the large cross represents the wound of the sword that pierced his side. Because he died, he gave everything to open up the doors to eternal life for us. And we live under the shadow of that cross, and we make a commitment to recognize the importance of the cross in our lives. We never look past the cross, even though there's a lot of focus of people on the resurrection. The cross is the symbol of the supreme sacrifice. And what I like to say about the order, it's not necessarily just the cross that they're wearing on the outside, or the cape, or the mantilla, or the mozzetta, but what's being worn on the inside of the person's life. And that commitment to really give witness to the sacrifice that Christ made for us, and the importance of people understanding that sacrifice in the world around us. So I think it's an important understanding. It's not so much about the visible insignia that we wear, but the commitment of the heart of the person. When a person is nominated in this order, it's not just anybody that's nominated. You have to be nominated by a member of the order. And what the member of that order is looking for are people that give witness to their faith already, people that lead an exemplary Christian life, and people that would be willing and able to make some financial support to the Christian communities in the Holy Land. So Meryl and Donna and Father Caparas, when you were nominated because people saw those charisms in you. Michael might not have seen those charisms in you, but others saw those charisms in you. And they're asking you to give a further commitment, a further step of witness to your faith. And a priest can only be nominated by his bishop, not by a lay member. So the nominations to the order, and there's sort of a scrutiny that takes place. We want to make sure that that person does have that witness and is living an exemplary Christian life. And that moves us to the various ranks in the order. So when a person is first invested, they're invested as what's called a knight or a dame of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre of Jerusalem. So that's the first initial rank. The second rank is what's known as a knight commander or a dame commander, and you have to be eligible after 3 years. You're eligible for promotion in rank, and you become eligible for promotion in rank if you've continued to be a member in good standing, if you've continued to made charitable support by paying the annual dues, by attending the annual meeting, by participating in the various functions, whether both on the level of the lieutenancy or the level within the diocese. And they show evidence of sort of meritorious evidence of their witness to supporting the Christian movement in the Holy Land. So you're eligible for the second rank, which is knight commander or dame commander, after 3 years. The third rank is called knight or dame commander with star. And in different lieutenancies, this happens a little bit differently, but it's normally a process after 4 years to be elevated to knight commander or dame commander with star. And the fourth rank is what's called Knight Grand Cross or Dame Grand Cross. And you can see the focus of the symbol of the cross in these elevation of ranks. There is a fifth rank that is rarely bestowed only upon extraordinary meritorious service, and that's what's called the Knight or Dame of the Collar, and that is reserved by the Pope himself to administer that rank. But it's a little bit different for clergy. For priests, a priest can only be elevated to the rank of knight commander. A bishop can be elevated to the knight commander with star, and a cardinal can be elevated to the level of Knight Grand Cross. So, and there's the higher you get in the order, there is different, we call them jewels of the order. They're different in the insignia of the order changes, but it always has the image of the Jerusalem cross. But I would say there is another symbol of the order, and that's called the pilgrim's shell. And it's really considered one of the highest ranks of the order to have received the pilgrim's shell. And that is when the knight or the dame has made a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, when they've experienced firsthand the plight of the Christians, they've seen the charitable works that are supported by the Latin Patriarchate, by our Latin Patriarch, and they really take that back home with them, and they give witness in the world around them to what they've experienced. And you'll see that the knight that has made the pilgrimage wears in the middle of their cape or their mantilla, in the middle of that Jerusalem cross, a silver shell with another Jerusalem cross embedded within it, symbolizing that they have made the pilgrimage to the Holy Land.
Wow.
That's an element to the order. Monsignor, I have to say you really have done a spectacular job explaining the order, and particularly the connection to Jerusalem. It's a lot more than people in fancy dress. And as someone who has been able to make that pilgrimage, it was life altering for me. Donna mentioned how it was life altering for her. That pilgrim shell, if I remember correctly, Donna, on your pilgrimage, I think you took photos of Father Ray Gormley receiving his pilgrim shell, and I remember he was moved by that. That was quite an
Bishop too.
experience. Oh,
Bishop
that's right,
received
Bishop
his
Sullivan.
pilgrim shell. Hmm.
That's right. He got his as well. Yeah, that was, it is not lost on me how the dedication of the knights and dames to Jerusalem, and particularly in this time of war and distress. I mean, when I went, it was pre-Gaza troubles, and even then, I really felt the need in the West Bank area. You know, the people who care for a lot of our Christian sites, they're located in the West Bank area, and they're cared for by Arabic Christians. And I did a couple of interviews while I was over there. Since I made Donna work, I figured the least I could do is make myself work while I was over there. And I interviewed some of the Arabic Christians, and even in good times with good tourism, it was still difficult to maintain those sites and to be able to live in that area, because the laws in Israel are not beneficial to anyone who lives on that side of the wall. And so particularly for Arabic Christians, it's very difficult. It very much turned my mind around about what the troubles are. I realized how little I really knew until I went there. And I love the fact that the Knights and Dames of the Holy Sepulchre, they make this part of their spiritual lives for the rest of their life. I think, Meryl, when you said that, it's funny. I mean, I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus. I'm a member of a number of other organizations, but I've never considered that. It's a promise until my dying day to care for Jerusalem. I mean, when you said that, that hit me really hard. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
Have you now, as a member, you're a year in, have you started like scouting out potential members that you might nominate?
Yes and no. I always have my eyes open. You know, yeah. I father comes to me and says, "Who do you think?" And I go, Maybe this one." He goes, "Oh yeah." Or he'll say, "What do you think of this one?" And I'll say, "Yeah, but maybe this one." So we have.
Well,
I was going to say, I don't think we've talked to a few people, but and I myself have too. Like every time somebody asks me about it, like because we're more visible now in the parish, and somebody comes and asks me about it, I tell them what we do, and that it's that this is the commitment for someone who's willing to make that commitment, and someone who's active, and it's usually somebody I know, so it's usually somebody who's pretty active in the parish. But I always tell them that you have to be invited, but that it's a holy obligation, and something that's it's not say, "Oh yeah, let's just do that." It's
Jen, I have a question for you, Jen.
Yes.
So you come from another diocese. Were the Knights and Dames of the Holy Sepulchre, was that something you've seen in other dioceses?
Oh gosh.
Do you recall?
I don't recall seeing the Knights and Dames as frequently as I've seen them here. I
Okay.
remember, my parents were in Atlantic City forever, and I remember, especially when my nephew was first born, we'd go to St. Nicholas of Tolentine, and there's a young man who is a knight, and he would wear the cross, and we're on Zoom, but Meryl, you held up the cross a second ago, and then I remember, my nephew was a youngster, and you have him over your shoulder, and he would reach behind me, and then I turned around to see what he was reaching for, and it was that cross. And I had never seen anything like that, like it. And we always talk about our Catholic faith, how the windows are a learning tool or a teaching tool, or the frescoes. That I had never really understood what that was. And after Mass, that young man, who was probably in his early 30s, but he was telling us, explaining what it was. So I didn't see it very often. And I certainly didn't understand, especially until this podcast, hearing everybody speak, but also the way you put it, Meryl, was it's a true vocation.
Mhm.
This is not something you just say yes to and then don't show up, if I'm hearing you guys correctly. It's part of who you are.
Hmm.
And I think that's beautiful.
And there's daily prayer that goes along with it and stuff. And so we're committed to pray for the people in the Holy Land. So that's part of, those prayers are for part of my daily prayer. And then there's also a daily prayer for the members of the order that we're supposed to say, that I say. And one of our patronesses is Our Lady of Palestine. And I there's a prayer for her that I say every day. And so that's, it's part of who I am. And so it's always in the back of my mind. And I have to say, Monsignor, you were talking about the cross and about the, the suffering and the plight of the people and how that is kind of representative of that. In the last year and a half of being, or, it's not quite a year and a half, but the last year of being part of the order, I have experienced more suffering, you know what I mean? But not suffering that I can't handle, you know what I mean? But suffering that I can offer up for those who are suffering in the Holy Land. And I think that I wear my Jerusalem cross a lot, and I feel like I get more suffering because of that, but I feel like it's an honor to carry that suffering and to offer it for them.
That's beautiful.
That is beautiful.
I just we have about 4 minutes left. I just want to bring up one other element to the order, which I will say I'm a big pomp and circumstance guy.
Finally,
very
I've been waiting for you to say that for like 15 minutes. Somebody make a pomp and circumstance.
The one of the elements of the what I like is that the installation is done in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City. Monsignor Marucci, I have to imagine that's just another element it's an entire weekend directed to the focus on the installation, correct?
That's correct. The new member, particularly coming in, they're required to participate in that vigil. And again, I make that connection between the knight and the dame experiencing a vigil experience and what a knight originally did, spending a night in prayer. Deus vult, God wills, is the motto of our order. And it's at that vigil, the day before, that they make that commitment to do what God wills in their lives as well. And then the next day, there's the beautiful investiture ceremony. We haven't really mentioned this, but it is a chivalric order in the church. So a person that is invested in the order actually warrants the title Dame or Sir if once they're invested in the order. And up to just a few years ago, during the actual investiture ceremony, whoever was doing the investing, whether it was the Grand Master of the order or a local designated bishop, would actually don the knight with the sword. Now they're donned with the crozier of the, if you're into really pomp and circumstance, you would love that.
I do.
But it's that symbolism again of who they are and what they stand for. Then there's a banquet, and at the banquet we an annual meeting, but we also learn a lot about what our charitable contributions have done, the difference that we're making, and then we hear often firsthand experiences from people that have been the beneficiaries of our charitable work.
Yeah. Well, I've for many of the investitures, I have made reference to the bishop's secretary that, hey, listen, I will come up with my camera and take good photos, because it's a permanent request that I will come up to any investiture and get good photos of the entire investiture, including our contingents. But I have to say, Monsignor, nice job growing the order in this diocese to go from so few to so many, up 96. I did not realize that there were that many members. Wow, that's truly impressive. So thank you for that. Well done, sir.
Thank you. And I have to again give credit to our bishop, because it's his consistency in wanting to promote the order. He always acknowledges the knights and the dames. Anytime I've gone to him and said, how about their participation in this event or that event, he's always been forthright in saying, yes, let's invite them. And we also try to do some social things together so that the knights and dames can get to know one another, which is a beautiful community of Christians in our diocese.
Well, to all of you, thank you very much for your commitment to the people of Jerusalem and the faith, more importantly, the faith in Jerusalem. Make sure that it's well attended to. So good luck in the future. Thank you for your lifelong vocation to that. And just as much, thank you for coming on the podcast. We greatly appreciate that. And to all of our listeners, thank you again for checking in. And we'll talk to you again next week. See you, everybody.